jumpstart your dreams now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and my name is David. I run a startup called Carbon Infinity, and we're focused on defossilizing the industrial economy. You probably know that the state of the climate science is such that we both need to decarbonize or as we say, defossilize the economic system, as well as remove gigaton scale carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to achieve 1.5 degrees of warming. The next slide, please. And so our solution really provides the technology to achieve both of those aims. We aim to use our green CO2 feedstock to create green chemicals and synthetic fuels to help defossilize impossible to electrify industries like long-distance aviation, as well as for long-term storage of that CO2 as a carbon removal solution. So our solution is quite simple. It's a 2 by 2 by 2 cubic meter box. And the smart aspect of it is a solid sorbent material in the middle, which is engineered to selectively capture CO2 from ambient air. We do that with a low temperature swing, which through adsorption and desorption creates a solid concentrated stream of CO2, which can be utilized on site to develop carbon-based products, as well as transported to do carbon sequestration. Our thesis is really driven around learning from history and lessons from historical innovation of other modular technologies like solar PV to help us come down the cost curve as quickly as possible and to tackle climate change. That said, we're inspired by lessons from recent history of innovation, and so we're looking to target niche markets for carbon utilization to help us come down the cost curve, which I'll show you in a bit, as well as continuous innovation and dedicated production to what we're calling direct air capture factories or factories to develop that learning by doing to help us come down the cost. We're focused on 3 key areas of innovation. As I've said, our sorbent technology to capture the CO2 itself, as well as process engineering around thermodynamics and heat transfer to optimize the module design itself, as well as factories to produce these modules through a microfactory and automated production line. This is a huge market, trillions of dollars worth of economic value to be derived. We need to rebuild the industrial economy from the ground up in a net zero manner, and our technology allows the means to do that, targeting niche markets like concrete and vertical farms to begin with, helping us come down the cost curve to target petrochemicals as well as the carbon removal market. We're the first company developing this technology in the Eastern Hemisphere. We're based between Shanghai and London, and we see our competitive advantages as being the modular design to help us develop thousands of machines and into the millions in the coming decade, as well as advantage as well with our innovation and technology. Our business model will evolve over time as we come down the cost curve, and so in the short term we're targeting these niche markets, and in the long term we'll be focused on developing that carbon removal technology and infrastructure to help us come down to net zero and ultimately net negative. We were founded a couple of years ago as a spin-off from Shanghai Jiaodong. We've won a number of awards in that time, and we've been focused for the last year or so on commercial readiness and getting to market. So I just got back to Shanghai yesterday to manage our pilot project, which will be in the ground early next year. And after that, we'll initiate a large seed round to help us get close to commercialization, as well as build a production facility in probably Dongguan, as well as develop relationships with HCFC greenhouse in Guangzhou. So thank you very much for listening.
Q&A start.
Hi, thank you for the sharing. Can you share a little bit more about the application of the technology? I think you mentioned concrete and crops, so can you talk a little bit more about that? And second question related to that is how do you differentiate, again, because there's a lot of these type of technologies nowadays, and I think you mentioned it in your slide as well, so the differentiation point. Thank you.
Yeah, so applications are really, there's a multitude of applications really looking at what products today are derived from fossil carbon, as well as are frankly impossible to electrify. And so concrete is one really interesting application in which you can actually create the carbon negative concrete, which is a step change from today, where it accounts for around 8% of CO2 emissions. And so we can use the CO2 as a feedstock to reduce the embodied content of the concrete and help that get to essentially carbon negative concrete, as well as vertical farms to enhance crop growth, synthetic chemicals, so ethylene oxide, propylene, to be used in everyday products, as well as hand sanitizer these days, as well as synthetic fuels, so defossilizing long-distance aviation and shipping. And then differentiation is really around continuous innovation, dedicated production, and using computing technologies to augment our industrial technology and research. And so we're using machine learning to accelerate solvent discovery, as well as using advanced simulation methods to operate and optimize our process engineering and thermodynamics. So we really see our differentiation and our competitive edge around using software to build hardware, as well as focusing on production and manufacturing to help us come down the cost curve and deploy our technology at scale and really.
And more?
Can you speak a bit more on your financials? Because I see you positioning yourself in the low-cost quadrant. Can you explain that a little bit more, please?
Yeah, so we're fully grant funded to date, around $2 million. Half of that will be going to our first pilot, which will be operating early next year. And from that, we aim to raise a relatively large seed or probably Series A of $20 million US to help us finance pilot 2, 3, 4, 5, and also invest in manufacturing technologies to help us produce that factory or factory to produce our first commercial scale modules.
The time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.